The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Amanda Toney, the Managing Director here at Stage 32, and I am really excited to bring you to today's Stage 32 Next Level webinar, Securing A-List Talent. And in front of you is a very good friend of mine, Franco Sama. He's been a producer for a very long time and has actually worked on over 25 films, many of them which have incorporated A-list talent. And the reason that we have brought Franco in today is because he really understands the tools that you need in order to necessarily get your offers to talent, and he's going to be able to share with you all the nitty-gritty of what you're going to need to attach some great talent to your film. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Stage 32 Next Level webinars, these are interactive webinars. So what that means is that you'll be able to ask Franco any questions that you might have. And this is Franco's third webinar with us, and sometimes his questions go on forever, so bring them. You've got a really experienced producer right in front of you, so please bring questions for him. And so for those of you who don't know how to do that, I'm going to go ahead and teach you how to use your control panel right now. So if you take a moment to locate on your screen your control panel, and you'll see a little part that either says questions, or you'll see a little icon that looks like a question mark. So what I want you to do is just go ahead and click that open, and it'll pop up something that looks like a chat box. And right before the webinar started today, Franco and I talked about a few questions that he's interested to learn from you. So first of all, he would like to know where everybody is tuning in from. So can you let us know either what city you're from or what country you're from, just so we have kind of an idea of who is here in the webinar today. So just go ahead and type that into the questions box right now. Perfect. It looks like we're starting to get some in. And Franco's actually able to see your responses as they're happening as well, although I'll read them out loud since everybody's probably curious where people are from. We have people from the United States, from both the coasts, New York and LA. We have someone from Toronto, actually a few people from Toronto, Irvine, New York. We have someone here from Queensland, Australia. It's great to have you here, Mike. California, North Carolina, Ohio. Great, cool. Just keep typing that in so Franco gets an idea of where you're from. And now, question number 2. Franco wanted to get a little bit of an idea of what type of a creative you are, meaning, are you more on the production side? Are you more along a producer? Or are you more along the creative side? Are you a writer or are you a director? He wanted to get a little bit of a feel for what types of professions we have here in the webinar today. So if you could go ahead and start typing that in. Looks like we've got a nice little blend here of producers, writer-producers, writer-directors, directors, filmmaker. Someone says that they wear many hats. I think we all do in independent filmmaking. Mix of all roles, great. So Franco, you can take a look at that right there. And then your third and final question, I promise this will be your last one, is we wanted to get an idea of what type of level of a filmmaker are you? Meaning, is this your first entry into filmmaking? Do you maybe have 1 film under your belt? Do you have 2? Do you have 10? Do you have 25 like Franco? So if you could just maybe type in a little bit more about your level of what you do in the industry, that's going to be very helpful for Franco as well. Oh, cool. It looks like we have some people who are first-timers. We have got a couple people with second features, first film. Someone did 8,000 projects. Dave, congratulations on that. Great. People are writing that they're doing shorts, they're doing features, and good. It looks like we've got a lot of varied experience here, which is going to be great. So this will really help Franco today with where he's going to take the presentation. And again, this will be the same exact feature that you're going to use to ask him questions at the end of his presentation. So I'll be around if there's any technical issues, but in the meantime, I'm going to have Franco make his presentation full screen now so we can get started. Oh, actually, Franco, before you do that, can you turn your microphone back on?
Hey, everybody.
Perfect.
Hey, Amanda.
Hey, Franco. And if you don't mind, just go ahead and making it full screen and we'll get going.
Okay. How's that?
That's perfect. All right, Franco, go ahead and take it away. Everybody enjoy the webinar today.
Okay. Well, again, Amanda, thank you so much, very much for the introduction. And as Amanda mentioned, this is my third webinar with Stage 32 Next Level. And it's just been so incredibly exciting for me to be a part of this. So I'm excited to be here today. I'm happy that you guys are here today. And each time I try to delve into a different topic, and this seems to be a topic that a lot of people come up to me and ask me on a fairly regular basis. You know, we all know there's a catch-22 in this business in terms of trying to get the right talent attached to a film, trying to get the financing for the film. And as we know, we have to get financing in order to get the talent. And then often we have to get the talent in order to get the financing. So I've certainly been in that situation many times. And my goal here today is to give you some tips as to how to sort of counterbalance the catch-22. And again, the reason I asked about what level you're at is because it's sort of different strokes for different folks. But the information I'm going to share with you today is intended to be general information that pretty much anybody, no matter what level you're at, can apply and use. Or it may be something that you want to just kind of put in your back pocket for a future date when you get to that particular point. So let's get started. So as Amanda mentioned, I've done over 25 films, feature films, successful independent features. My sweet spot tends to be, I've always used to say I'm the $1 to $3 million guy. Things change, you know, over the years, so that's gone down a little bit on one side and up a little on the other. So for all intents and purposes, the films that I'm associated with and produce and executive produce tend to run maybe from a $500,000, $500,000 budget range, all the way up to about $4.5 to $5 million. So there are a lot of variables there. These days, of course, you know, some of these filmmakers that I'm working with are making films for $300, $350. That is usually the low threshold for qualifying for any kind of a tax incentive. So for a lot of filmmakers, they go to the minimum. And also you have the SAG rules for a low minimum. They want to stay within a certain range. And I understand that, and I'm very often willing to work in those films as well. It's just a little harder to get what you need when you're working on those kinds of a low budget. But as you can see, it's not just film financing that I have had a great deal of experience and success with. It's also distribution. And at the end of the day, without distribution, there's no film. I mean, you can spend lots of time and money and energy putting a movie together, and if nobody ultimately ever goes out and sees it or spends money to buy a ticket or clicks to rent it, then you're not going to get the return revenue, and as a result, you're going to end up basically where you started, if not in a worse position. So distribution is very key part of this, and I'm bringing that up because there's a direct correlation between having name talent in your movie and getting distribution and making a return, which is exactly what we're going to cover today. So as you can see, I've had films distributed through Universal, Sony, Paramount, Vivendi Universal, After Dark Pictures, which has something called 8 Films to Die For around Halloween time, and they do a lot of P&A promotion behind that. I was one of those films. Mine was one of those films. Lionsgate, et cetera, et cetera. This, I'm proud to say, is my next movie coming to theaters. Hopefully, right now it looks like September 2nd is the date that this is going to be released into theaters. We made a decision to wait until after the summer blockbuster so that we could get a great deal of play. This is a really fun movie starring Chris Klein from, you guys know him from American Pie, among other things. He did an amazing job in this film. I'm very, very excited. There is a trailer out there, I think on YouTube. If anybody's interested in seeing that, you can just type in Game of Aces trailer into YouTube and you can see the trailer for that film. But this is my next film coming out. I had 2 films come out last year, and this is my first one for this year. Okay, so speaking of actors with names, this is just an idea, give you guys a sense of the actors I've had a chance to work with in the films that I've produced or executive produced. One of my favorite actors of all time, of course, Gary Oldman, who was in a movie I did called Guns, Girls, and Gambling, which had an incredible cast, a dark comedy that I think you guys, if you ever rent, would have a lot of fun enjoying because Gary plays an Elvis impersonator in that. I worked with Thora Birch in a movie called Petunia. Christian Slater, Michael Madsen, Chris Klein in the movie I just mentioned, David Arquette We did a movie back in 2010 together. Christine Lahti, who is an Academy Award winner. The beautiful Vivica Fox was in the same film with David Arquette. They co-starred in a film that I did originally was called The Land of the Astronauts, and then it got changed in distribution to be called Black Limousine, and that's the name of the film that's on the market. One of my dearest friends in the world, Miss Lynn Shay, who many of you may recognize as the crazy lady in Something About Mary, but she's also nowadays very, very popular because she's been in all three of the Insidious movie franchise, and I'm so happy for her success, and I'm really, really trying hard to get her into one of my next upcoming films. Like I said, we've been friends for years. Michael Urie from Ugly Betty. James Kyson, who many of you may know from the television show Heroes. We did a film last year called The Livingston Gardener, and he starred in it. I was really happy to get him on board. Brittany Snow, Powers Booth, Lance Henriksen from Terminator, and Dane Cook, who was in the movie with Gary Oldman. So this is just a sampling of some of the people that have been in the movies that I have produced or executive produced, and we will see very shortly how and why these people on these two charts have made a huge impact on my ability to continue to make films moving forward. So some of you have seen some of my past work or webinars. You know that this is sort of my catchphrase. I tell people all the time, people come to me for money all the time because I'm an executive producer, and I've always said executive producer is code for I need money, right? Get me the money. So what I tell people all the time is this: getting the money is not always the hard part. Getting the money back is the hard part. It's one thing to go out and raise $1 million for a feature film. And most people coming into that world, especially if it's your first, maybe second time, the mindset is, if you're a writer, producer, writer, director, the whole mindset generally is people know how much they need, and they know what they're going to spend it on when they get it. But what they don't put enough thought and consideration into, in my opinion, is how are they going to get it back? Because at the end of the day, in order to do what I do and to continue to be able to have the kind of longevity that I've enjoyed over these many years, 18 years now, of being in the film business, is you have to be able to pay back your investors and make them happy and keep them happy. And not only that, you want them to go beyond being happy and investing in your films. You want them to be so happy that they're willing to go out and bring in their friends and their resources to be able to potentially invest in your future. So the key to this whole business, in my opinion, is getting money to invest in your films and also having a strategy moving forward and a plan as to how you're going to get that money back. So let's talk about some general truths regarding name actors. You know, people throw around the term A-list, but you know, a lot of the actors don't have to be A-list for them to do not only a great job in the film creatively as an actor, but in order to achieve the ultimate goal of being able to return investment to investment bankers and to investors, right? So I'm going to call them name actors, because you can be a name and still be a B+ level actor and still have the exact same impact on a lower budget film as a Brad Pitt is going to have on a $80 million film, right? Everything is relative, is basically what I'm saying. And what I've experienced, what I've learned over the years is that all actors, they just want to work. And, you know, for Gary Oldman, for example, to be in a movie, a dark comedy where he plays an Elvis impersonator, where the entire budget of the film was only $3 million, I mean, somebody like Gary Oldman doesn't get out of bed for less than $5 million perhaps in the morning, is my guess. But to actually be in a movie where the entire budget is only $3 million was a real accomplishment for us. And it just goes to prove the point that if an actor, no matter who they are, is attracted to the material, attracted to the people, particularly the director, and they happen to be available because they have the time in between projects, it is very possible that you can get them to come on board a film. A lot of people don't think that. They think in their head, I'll never get so-and-so, it's impossible. But we're going to talk about your expectations around that issue and managing your expectations around that issue in a couple slides down. Many name actors are attracted to these smaller, greater films, like I said, and they'll work on the lower budget because it's not always about the money. And in my case, in several films, you can hire these people to come in for 1 to 3 days. They don't have to be there for 28 days or 2 months. You know, that's crazy. You're not going to get them to do it. It's not likely. It's unrealistic. But I'll give you my first experience with that was a movie I did called Tooth and Nail with Michael Madsen and Vinnie Jones. And this was way back, 2006 or 7. You know, Michael Madsen came into that project. I think he was only actually on set for maybe 3 days. He got paid what he got paid. I can't divulge that. But, you know, he come in and he did his job. And the writer, producer, director, what they did was very creative, because if you were to watch that movie today, it appears as though he had been there for the entire shoot because of the way it was written and because of the way it was edited. He appears in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. Yet they went in, they shot him in, they shot him out, they got him paid, and he was gone, and we made the rest of the movie around him. But we were able to put his name on the film. We were able to put, in those days, on the box, we used to call it, when there were VHS tapes and DVDs, we used to, just the idea of having his picture on the cover was huge, because that's what sold the film in the stores back when we had Blockbuster. You know, these days there's very little in DVD sales except in the big box stores like Costco and Walmart and Target, but for the most part, video on demand has taken over that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so there are creative ways to get these people, because even though we may not have the money in the budget right now to pay them, that doesn't mean we can't figure out a way to get them in the movie where we can negotiate some kind of terms where they'll still do the film and do the shooting, and we'll work out some kind of a payment arrangement in a later date, which we're going to cover momentarily. So in terms of securing A-list talent, there's a couple of things that you just got to keep in mind. One, you have to have reasonable expectations. You know, on one hand, you want to take some risks, but you really need to have reasonable expectations. I have people come to me all the time with these small little movies that are $350,000, $500,000, $750,000 budgets, and they have a wish list, and they have crazy names on there like Meryl Streep and Angelina Jolie, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's an unreasonable expectation, especially if it's your first time and you're a first-time director and you're trying to get a major celebrity like that to come into the project. It has happened from time to time. It's extremely rare. And as I'm often quoted as saying, it shouldn't be your plan A. Let's put it that way. Then we're going to talk about do not make empty offers to talent. I can't tell you how many people do it. Happens all day, every day. It's a mistake. People are out there making offers through the agencies to name actors on projects, finding a way to get their script read and get some kind of response from the agency, and then they don't have the money to back it up. It's a terrible situation. I had one producer come to me, and he got all excited because Sally Field had read his script and said, and he was waiting for an answer from the agent, and he called me one day and he was through the moon. He said, "You're not going to believe this, but Sally Field said yes. She said yes, she'll do my film." And I said, "Okay, great. So what's the plan? How are you going to move forward, and how are you going to back that offer that you just made, that she just accepted?" And he just looked at me dumbfounded, like, I hadn't really thought about that. I guess I got to figure that out, right? And I was like, yeah, well, maybe we could have figured that out before you came to me and before you made the offer, because now you've got egg on your face because she said yes, and now you're going to have to say no, at least until you figure it out. And believe me, the agents and the managers remember when those things happen. So you should have at least enough, even if you don't have the money to finance your film, which is understandable, especially at the early stages, you should have at least enough money to back an offer. I'm going to show you where to do that, how to do that a little bit down the road. But by doing this, by doing it the right way, you can establish credibility, because these people don't know who you are. The agents don't know who you are. The talent doesn't know who you are yet. And until they do, you got to sort of take your time and take these baby steps and work your way up to a place where they will respect you and take your call and move forward in the direction that you want them to move forward with. And then you also, when you do ultimately present an offer, you have to have some kind of a deadline. I'll give you another little tip. You should never, if it's your star actor, if it's your name actor or your number one main leading role, you should never make multiple offers to multiple actors for the same role at the same time. It's sort of an unwritten rule, an unwritten law in this town. If you're going after a certain actor or actress for the lead, you have got to wait until you get a response, whether that's a yes or a no, back from that actor before you go out to another actor for that same role. I have a lot of people, they just go out there, and I see them do it all the time. They just make 5 offers to 5 actors, and they cross their fingers, and they just wait, and they hope that somebody says yes. You cannot do that. It is bad business, and people will know that you're doing that. It's a very small town when it comes to that, and they will remember that you made that move. It's a rookie move. Do not do it. For that reason, I always include a deadline in my offers, so that I say to them, look, you got 2 weeks to make this decision. Here's my offer. Here's the amount. Here's the role. Here are the perks. And this is the date I need an answer. And that if I don't hear from you by this date, we're going to assume it's a no. And then you can move on to the next person. It's understood that if they don't answer you, then they're probably passing, and that you now have the green light, so to speak, to move forward and go and ask another actor to take that role, and they can have nothing to say about it because you gave them ample time to at least respond. Even if they don't give you an answer or commitment, you should at least get a response from the agent or the manager saying, I need another week, or let me get the script to him or her, and I might need some more time. That's fine. But if you don't hear from them at all, you can move on. So we talked about reasonable expectations. So on the one hand, you want to set reasonable expectations for yourself. And don't expect Angelina or Brad to be in your first film. But on the other hand, don't be afraid to take risks. And don't underestimate the talent pool. Don't underestimate it. Don't convince yourself before you even try that so-and-so would never do my movie. You want to sit down with a team of people, which I'm gonna break down for you momentarily here, but you want to sit down with a team of people that are in a position to be able to tell you, or to help you, guide you through the process of figuring out who should be in this film from a business standpoint. We understand that you're going to have a wish list of actors that you want to play certain roles in your film. That is completely understandable. And in many cases, writers and producers come to me and say, oh, I wrote this role exactly for so-and-so, which is great. That's fine. But that doesn't mean so-and-so is going to do your movie, and that you're going to want to know that you can have some kind of flexibility, that if it's not that actor or actress, that somebody else in the same sort of league may be able to step in and do that role. So, of course, we're not saying to only cast from a financial standpoint, but we're also saying don't only cast from a creative standpoint. You really have to find the balance between art and commerce and be able to say, okay, these are the list of actors that make sense for me creatively. Now let me go figure out who makes sense from a business standpoint in terms of being able to sell this film at market, to be able to get a reasonable return from ticket sales and from marketing, and also who's going to sell in the foreign or the international marketplace as well, which is a big key, which I'm going to focus on here today. So why do you need a name actor in the first place? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't. I've got a couple of films that I've done that are sort of under the radar, $250,000, $300,000 films where there isn't any kind of a major name actor. We can't expect to make a whole lot of money on those films, but sometimes that's not the point. Sometimes the point is to just break even, because when it comes to investors and investments in the movie business, of course they would love your film to be the next big thing that's going to break the bank and put them into the millions of dollars of profit. But at the same time, the most important thing when it comes to dealing with and negotiating with investors in a film situation is whatever you do, don't lose their money. It's one thing for them not to make a big profit. They should be able to at least get a return on their investment. But whatever you do, don't lose the principal. Don't lose the money. If they give you $1 million, you've got to make sure that you at least break even and make $1 million so that you don't hurt your investor. Maybe nobody makes any profit, but at least you don't have some investor running around telling everybody that they meet what a bad idea investing in the movie business is, because they lost money. They put in $1 million and they only got back $250,000. I've seen that happen, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. And there are ways that we can prevent that if we just think before we act moving forward. So having a name actor attached to your film gives you credibility. It helps you significantly acquire the financing from investors. It helps you significantly when it comes to acquiring distribution, domestic sales. But the single biggest reason why it's important to have a name actor in your film, especially if we're talking about $1 million and above for budget, is international sales. There's a direct correlation between the actor, name actor, the star or the main actor, even if they're not a star. They could have a secondary or third level role, right? But they have to be in the movie. You can't have them in there for 30 seconds like a cameo and then they wave and they're out. That doesn't count. That's cheating. But if you get somebody, like I said, Gary Oldman came in for a couple of days, Michael Madsen came in for a couple of days, and you filter the movie with their presence, and they're seen in the film as a major part of the movie, that's what's going to trigger your international sales. So a lot of people hear that, but they don't understand what that means. What is the international marketplace all about? And why should I care? How is it important to me? Well, this is how it breaks down. There are roughly, I'm guessing, about 30, 35 what are considered major territories around the world. And they are broken down into these groups. So North America is what we call your domestic. Everything else is international or foreign. So you have your domestic and your international. They're two completely different categories. But domestic includes Canada. So whenever you hear somebody talking about their domestic sales, it includes U.S. and Canada. And the estimates that we ultimately want to acquire in terms of what we think this film is going to make in the future sales are often usually separated. So you get one set of estimates from the domestic distributor, and then you would get a second set from the international distributor. Many times they are combined. There's some companies that want to do what we call the world. They want the world. They want to do the whole thing, domestic and international. But in doing so, you're putting all of your eggs in one basket, and that's not always the best thing to do. And in my world, I like to separate those things. So I do all of my domestic distribution through one company, and I do my international distribution through another, and that gives me a little bit more control over the future of my film. So then those categories are broken down into Europe, which is, not just Germany, Spain, Italy, and France, but all of Europe. There's probably maybe another handful. of major territories. That said, Germany is considered to be pretty much the top, number one. So Germany tends to buy the most from the U.S., and they also tend to pay the most. So Germany is sort of a benchmark. If you sell Germany, and you get a pretty penny for Germany, then that's a good indicator that your film is going to sell equally well around the rest of the world. Then there's Eastern Europe, which includes Russia, Hungary, and Poland. There's the Middle East, including Israel and Turkey. There's the Asias, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, and India, which is an emerging marketplace for film. In fact, I have a film being shot there probably by the end of this year. Latin America, which includes Brazil and Mexico and Colombia and Venezuela. And then what's broken down as miscellaneous, which includes Australia and New Zealand. And the airlines, because the airlines used to be a little minor thing that nobody talked about, but there's actually quite a market there for selling films to airlines for those, especially the international flights where people are literally, paying to watch the movies on the airplanes, and in some cases domestically and internationally, they get the movie for free, but somebody is paying for the content. So that's generally how the international marketplace is broken down. And I think a lot of filmmakers don't know this, and I think it's important information to have under your belt. So some of you have probably seen this document like this before. I apologize, I know it's a little fuzzy probably on your screen. It was the best I could do for now to get it up on here, but I just wanted you to get a sense of really what sales estimates are and what they look like and how they work. Because to me, this is sort of one of the most critical aspects of getting your film financed, and it is the link between I told you earlier, who's in your movie, there's a direct correlation between who's in your movie and how much money you're able to raise and recover and recoup, right? There's a direct correlation. Well, this document right in front of you, this is the linchpin that connects those two dots, okay? And they're called sales estimates, international or foreign sales estimates. In this case, on this particular document, they're combined. You can see North America, US and Canada at the top, is combined with the rest of the world. And you can see the categories that we just broke down and all of the other countries that are within those categories. So when you go to a distribution company or a sales company and you present your film, this is what you're looking to get back. This is the information that you need to best be able to go out and raise money for your film. In this particular case, the budget, it says 3.5. I know it doesn't look like that probably, but on my screen it says 3.5 is the budget. And then you have three columns: low, medium, middle, and high. So again, these are estimates. So what these numbers are saying, if you look at the bottom line, if you were to sell the rights to your film in each of these countries around the world, by the time we were finished, you would have accumulated a minimum of 6.6 in the low, worst case scenario. Mid-range is about 9, close to 10 million. And then your high is about 15 million, 15.5. Okay? Low, medium, high. The other thing that some distribution companies do is they give you only two columns. And one is called ask, and the other one is called take. So I might ask for 250,000 from Germany, but I might take 150 if that's what it came down to, if it meant the difference between selling the film and not. So what does it mean if I sell a territory? What it means is, in this case, let's say the UK. The low end is, I think it says 300,000. 300,000 for the low at the UK. My distribution representative, my sales agent, international sales agent, presumably has a relationship with the people who buy films, the rights to films in all of these countries around the world. That's what they do. And they can pick up the phone and they can get a quote like this based on this film. Now, this particular film, where the numbers came from on this film, which obviously is not really called Best Movie Ever, but I had to change the name of it to protect the producers. This film these are real numbers, by the way, on a real movie, and it stars Jim Carrey as the lead and Bryan Cranston, among several other really great actors. But those are the two main people in this particular movie. So based on spending $3.5 million with those two actors, these are in the genre, which in this case, by the way, happens to be a Western, which is very unusual, but it happens to be the case. So these are the real numbers. That based on that cast, based on the script, the quality of the script, based on the genre, there are a number of factors to factor in. These are real numbers, and these are being offered to the producers through the distributor for in these three categories. So what this allows me to be able to do is go to a potential investor and go, hey, look, these are real numbers, and in the worst case scenario, we're going to roughly double your money, 6. We're going to go from 3 to 6. And in the mid case, we're going to roughly triple your money at 3.5 million. And then there's the high, which is unusual, but it could happen. It's a possibility. So what does it mean? I'm going to sell a territory. Let's go back to that. I'm going to sell it. I think it's just 350 for UK. If my distributor's rep sells the UK for 350, what I'm going to get back is a contract. I'm not going to get a check. I'm not going to get a check because I haven't delivered the film. I'm going to get a contract which states that as long as we collectively as a team, producer team, deliver the film that we're promising, which has to be good and it has to have those people in it, as long as I deliver, upon delivery of the film, the UK will give me, I can cash the check basically. I can cash the check for the $350,000 because now I have got a commitment for what is now called a pre-sale. So you technically, if they sign a contract up front today, saying that if a year and a half from now, once this movie is done and in the can and finished, you come back and deliver it to me, then we'll give you $350,000 for it. So having that document is critical because it's kind of like walking around. If somebody wrote you a check right now, it's kind of like walking around with a check that they didn't sign, right? There's no signature on the check. So you can show everybody the check. Look, I got a check for $1 million, but I can't cash it because the guy never signed it, right? So you have it, but you don't have it. It's not real, but it will be as soon as he signs it. Well, it's the same thing with this. Once we deliver the film, that 350 becomes realized and it's real money in the bank. So I think it's important to have some kind of a basic fundamental understanding of how all this works, right? Because, we're talking about bringing in name actors, going out into the international marketplace, getting estimates and seeing how that pans out so that I can go continue to raise money. Now, I have a litmus test for international sales value, and I call it the parentheses test. This happens all the time. You guys are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, if you look at the people on the four corners of this chart, you can see you don't need parentheses to know who they are, right? All you need to be able to do is look at their face, and you instantly recognize who they are. Now, that may not be the case with the two people in the middle. Now, Jeannie Tripplehorn is a great actor, love her work. She's been in some huge movies, Basic Instinct, In the Firm, Big Love. Scott Adkins, same thing. Two very, very well-received films that made lots of money, Bourne Ultimatum and The Expendables. But people don't know who they are on the surface. And the only way for me to convey who they are is by putting parentheses around their name and saying the woman from Basic Instinct or the guy from The Expendables. People say that to me all the time. You know, I've got so-and-so, you know, the girl that's in the da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, no, I don't know the girl from that. I'd have to go back and look it up. I'd have to go to IMDb. I'd have to go watch the TV show. I'd have to go see the film, and then I'll know who she is, right? Or I recognize that guy from something. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I know who you're talking about. I know who he is. I just don't, it didn't register the way it would if it was Sarah Jessica Parker or Halle Berry, right? So that's just sort of a litmus test, kind of figure out, do they have name recognition around the world? Are people in China and Germany and France and all of these other places around the world going to want to come and see them? You know, I'll use my own movie as an example. Christian Slater, love him to death. Great actor, I think very underrated, by the way, highly underrated. Solid as a rock as an actor. He has some international appeal. I'm not saying he doesn't have any. But then you bring Gary Oldman into the picture, and boom, everything changes. All of a sudden now, we're going to go from here to here in terms of our ability to sell this film. That's the film, by the way, that Universal Home Video picked up. And I'm going to go on record as saying I'm convinced that the reason they ultimately picked it up was because Gary was in that movie, and that we would have gotten some distribution without Gary, but we wouldn't have been able to make the movie for $3 million. We probably would have had to make it for half that, 1.5. And we would have recouped our budget with the cast because we had an incredible cast on that besides Gary and Christian. We had Dane Cook, Chris Kattan, and Powers Booth. So we would have been able to recoup, but we wouldn't have been able to recoup as quickly. We recouped in 18 months. So there's a lot to this when you look at the connection between the name and the money. So let's talk about a couple of things. Let's go back to square one. Let's go back to day one. And let's talk about the old way of doing things, which I'm as guilty as anybody. You know, some of the earlier films I made this way. I didn't know. Once I knew, I started doing it differently. But the old way of doing things is to go out and write a script if you're a writer, which I'm not. So I had to go option somebody else's. Right? So go out and find a script. You figure out how you're going to raise the money to make the movie. You cast it between your friends and whatever resources you may have available to you. You cast it as you see fit from a creative perspective. You shoot it. You spend all the money, no matter whether it's $100,000 or $3 million. You spend the investor's money on the film. You get it in the can. Then you bring it to AFM or any of the other markets where you go to sell film. And guess what? No one cares. Now you're in a situation, and I've seen it a million times, and I've been in this situation before. I go to AFM. For those of you who have not gone to the American film market, which is here in Santa Monica, California, I think every November, everybody should go once at least and have the experience. It's awesome. Once. It's not so awesome after the 12th or 13th time, but it's still a lot of fun. My point is, I walked into AFM about 4 or 5 years ago, and because I go every year, and I know all these guys. I know all the distributors. I know where the booth is. I always go in and reconnect with these people. It's a great way to build relationships with distribution companies all around the world because they're all in one hotel for 5 days or 10 days. And I started to notice something. I started to notice that the posters that I was seeing up on the easels in front of each of their booths started looking familiar to me. And I realized, oh my God, those are the same posters that they had last year. What does that mean? So I started sitting down with some of these distributors and going, why are you still selling the same stuff you were selling last year? And they said, because nobody's buying it. We're still peddling the same stuff over and over and over again. And I said, well, why aren't they buying it? And they said, because there's nobody in it that anybody wants to see. And that's when it hit me. I was like, what are we doing wrong here? This is crazy. Year after year, these guys are still peddling the same stuff. Yes, of course, they have some new stuff in the mix, but the old stuff's still there. And that's when the light went on. Hence, the new way. So here's the new way. The new way is to write or option a script, raise development money so that I can develop the script to a place where an investor is going to be interested in putting money into it. Then build a team of professionals that know more than I do about how all this works. And then bring distribution in from day one. Bring distribution in from day one. I want you to hear that. Instead of waiting until you spent all your money and did all this work and went crazy and then walking in and knocking on the door and saying, hey, will you buy my movie? And they say no because we're not interested in what's in it. What if we sat down with the distribution people before we made the movie, way before we even started raising the money, which is exactly what I do now, and brainstorm, because these are the guys that have their finger on the pulse. These are the guys that know, that pick up the phone and call the buyers all around the world all day, every day. They have the relationships. They know who's selling. One year, it was Ron Perlman. He was the big hot one. There was a couple of years where it was Michael Madsen in these small action movies. It changes from year to year to year. So they know who's selling and who's not, who's hot and who's not, who's up and coming and who you should put in your film because it's getting ready, they're getting ready to break. They know who these people are. So what if I sat down with them now during my development phase and brought them into the mix and said, let's get together with the casting director and the international sales rep and the domestic sales rep and the producer and the director and myself, and let's brainstorm and let's come up with a list of people who not only are perfect for the role creatively, but who will also sell the movie internationally and domestically because they say so, because they know what they're talking about. And they're the ones who are going to have to sell it anyway. So why don't we work with them instead of against them? And it worked. And then it worked again. And then it kept working, and now it's the way I do business. So we're going to cast the film based on art and commerce. We're going to consult with international and domestic reps up front, which is easier said than done. I do have a solution for that too, of course. But now we're going to negotiate from a position of strength. Instead of walking in there and going, please look at my movie, I'm going to walk in there from the beginning and say, let's join together and work together and get this movie made together. And more than anything else, when it comes down to the bottom line, you have to be able to back your offers to actors. You cannot go out there with empty offers. Don't do it. Most inexperienced filmmakers make empty offers. They just send out an email and they say, we want the talent, here's the role, here's the money, yes or no, and then even if they get a yes, they have no clue as to what to do next. Because I don't have the money to back up the offer. And so now not only do they lose the offer and the deal and the actor, they lose their reputation with it. You have to set yourself apart from the rest of the people, because these people remember you. The agents and the managers and the attorneys, believe me, 3 years from now, you pick up that phone again, and, oh yeah, you're the guy who made the offer to Sally Field and then reneged because you didn't have any money. Oh, I remember you. Don't think they don't remember. But they also remember when you're the guy who steps up, or girl, who steps up to the plate. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Because I was that guy. I can't tell you how many empty offers I made and how many doors got slammed in my face, right? But now, when I make an offer and I pick up that phone and they see my name on the caller ID, they know that I haven't picked up that phone and called because I don't have any money to be able to back an offer. They know it's a real deal, and they're going to answer, and they're going to work with me. So here's one of the problems. Most times, first-time, second-time filmmakers, they're trying to get the talent to say yes so that they can go raise the money off of their name. You don't think that they know that? That the talent agents and managers don't know that you're using them, basically, and then the face in the image of their name of their client, so that you can go ask somebody for $1 million? Of course they know that. What if it was the other way around? What if you had the money and then you went to the talent? Now you're dealing from a position of strength. Look, I know, I get it. I know that a lot of you guys are thinking, yeah, easy for you to say, right? And it's not that easy. It isn't. I'm not suggesting that it is. But there are ways that you can do this. It just takes time and patience, structure and strategy moving forward. And you have to surround yourself with the right people. Otherwise, it's not going to happen that way. You can't just pick up the phone and cold call these people. You have to build relationships. So where do you start? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to have some development money. You can't expect to go out and make $1 million movie or a $500,000, $750,000 movie with zero in your bank account. It's not realistic. And if you're doing it, it's going to take you a long, long time, because now all you're doing is relying on people who can do you favors. And although that's great and admirable that people will step up and do you favors, trust me, you can line up a whole team of people, and the minute that phone rings and a real job comes in with a real paycheck, they're going to be gone. And you're going to be left holding the bag. It's happened to me. It'll happen to you. You've got to be able to pay the people to do their jobs and to lock them in and to engage them into your project. And the way you do this is with 25,000. I call it a rule of thumb, 25,000 per million. So if you have $1 million budget or somewhere around there, you should at least have 25 grand. And you know what? These days, people are raising 25 grand like that on Kickstarter. I see it all the time because they're calling me to tell me. You've got to have some seed money. You've got to have a development fund. And if you do, this is what you're going to do with it. You're going to build your team with 6 critical people, which I'm going to show you on the next screen who they are. You're going to build your website and your social media presence. You're going to put together a killer investment proposal so that you're not going out there with a cut and paste, Google search PDF that you're going to present to investors asking for $1 million. Happens all the time. I have a whole team of graphic artists that do these killer, beautiful presentations, because the presentation that you put in front of an investor is an indicator as to what kind of movie you're going to make. And if you start pasting Google pictures and verbiage and start stealing articles off the web about how movies make money and stick it into a PDF and send it off to an investor, that's the level that they're going to see you at. But if you take the time and the effort and the money to bring in a graphic artist, and I've got some amazing examples of these, to put together a really beautiful, professional, well thought out business plan, it changes everything, the way they perceive you. Then you're going to create an LLC and get into business. Open up the LLC in the name of your movie, and then go open up a bank account in the name of the LLC. So if you have a movie right now and you wanted me to write you a check for $100 grand, and I pull out my checkbook, the first thing I'm going to say is, who do you want me to write it to? And if you don't have a place, if it's called The Best Movie Ever, and you don't have a bank account in the name of The Best Movie Ever, LLC bank account, I can't write the check. I'm not going to write it to you. I'm not going to write it to your production company, because that's not what I'm investing in. I'm investing in your movie. So go open up the LLC in a bank account with the part of the money from your development. Then you're going to wine and dine potential investors, and you can't bring these guys to Chipotle. You got to bring them to the Four Seasons. You have to. You have to. That's just the way it works, right? You got to bring them someplace nice and go out for drinks and take them out for dinner. You can't do it any other way. And then any miscellaneous travel expense. So that's what the 25 grand is for. So backing offers, 50 grand. Okay, you start out with as little as 50,000. I'm talking about $1 million movie here, folks. $750,000 to $1 million movie. You've got to at least start off with some seed money, and 50 grand is the number. And let me tell you why. Because you can put 25 of it towards development, which we just discussed, and we're going to talk again about on the next slide, and 25 towards backing an offer. That's what's going to separate you from the pack. Backing an offer. Actually, money talks, right? So here's the difference. Instead of sending an empty offer, what if I did this? And I do. What if I call the agent and I go, okay, here's the deal. I want your actor in my movie. I plan on emailing you an offer. By the way, what's your routing number? And they're like, routing number? Yeah, for the agency. You must have a escrow account. Of course we do. Well, give me the number for the escrow. So what do you want that for? Because I'm going to wire you $25,000. You are? Yeah, because I want your actor to really read the script. I don't want to hear all this BS that you're sent it to the talent and they want to negotiate. I want to know that you're going to send this thing to your client. And they're going to read the script over the weekend, and they're going to come back within the 2-week deadline, and they're going to give me an answer. I don't even care if the answer is no. Because you know what? Guess what? If the answer is no, I get my 25 grand back. And if the answer is yes, you keep it and hold on to it and put it towards the final offer. When I said in the ad for this webinar, a bulletproof way of getting actors to read your project, this is it. Money talks. You have to have 25 grand to put into escrow. Remember, it's going into escrow. That means it comes back if it doesn't work. Okay? So, we're going back to this development idea. You have to build your team. You have to have a strategy. You have to have a budget. You have to have a schedule. I can't tell you how many people come to me and they go, I say to them, listen, what's your budget? They go, oh, $2 million. I'm like, oh, okay. Can I see that? Can you email me your budget? And I go, email you my budget? What do you mean? Like the actual, like a budget? I'm like, yeah, the budget. I want to see, wait, I don't have a budget. What do you mean you don't have a budget? Where did that number come from? Well, I think I can make the movie for $2 million. Really? Oh, really? That's very interesting. Because I don't think so. I think we need a professional who does know how much your movie is going to cost. Because I can't even tell you that. I don't even know the answer to that question until somebody takes the time and the money to go through line by line, word by word, prop by prop, and figures out exactly what it's going to actually cost to get this movie made. That's how you have to do it. You can't just wing it. So you got to build your team. Who's your team? Number one, and this is what the $25,000 is for, so you can secure these people in place. Number one, they're line producers, the guy I'm just telling you about. Somebody who can go through your budget and not only give you a budget, but a schedule. How can you know how many days you need these actors and you're going to make offers if you don't know how many days you need them in the film on set? You need a budget and a schedule. It has to be done by a professional line producer, and you should, unless you have a best friend who does it for free, you should be prepared to pay for that. And by the way, in my world, I get that stuff for a fraction of what it would cost for most people because I have a team of people who work with me on a regular basis. Okay? Then I need to bring in a casting director. Same thing. I got to pay them. You can't ask them to do you a favor because even if they do you a favor, they're going to spend 97% of their time on the phone dealing with the people who are paying them, and they're going to spend the other 3% maybe making a phone call on your behalf. That's how it works. But if you write them a check for $3,000 or $5,000 and say, this is a retainer towards your services so I can pay for your time and your expertise and your energy and your efforts into my project, now you got a team player. That comes out of the development fund. You need a production attorney. Somebody has to handle the legal on this stuff. You've got offers going back and forth. You've got investors coming in. Somebody has to handle that. You need to be able to have at least enough money on hand to pay a retainer. You need an executive producer. Hello? Doesn't have to be me, but it's got to be somebody like me who can orchestrate all this and who has those relationships and who can bring these people to the table if you can't. And then I do a post-production supervisor because I'm a strong believer in having post-production supervisor on board from the beginning so that when we get to the end of the movie, there's no surprises and we have everything that we need in order to deliver the film to the distributor based on their requirements. But the two biggest, most important people here are the next two, which is the international and the domestic sales reps. We talked about them earlier. The way my program works is that these guys aren't going to just go randomly giving you these numbers, because it's just they don't have time, to be completely honest with you. So what they're going to do, if you go to a distribution company, they're going to ask you to sign your life away, basically. They're going to ask you to sign an actual distribution agreement, which locks you in to that deal for the rest of time on that movie, which isn't always a bad thing. But think about it. If you turn out to make the best movie that was ever made, and you're locked into this deal, and you go to a festival and Harvey Weinstein comes in and wants to write you a $10 million check, you can't do it, because you already have a distributor that you signed on before you even made the film. Sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's not. So what I'm saying is, we bring in international sales reps, the real guys, they own their own companies, and they come on as a consultant, which means that they're getting paid a small fee out of your development money, but they're being paid to sit in that room with us and brainstorm and figure out who they can sell in the domestic, who they can sell in the international. They're part of the team. We're working with the casting director, the producer, the director, myself, and we're coming up with a plan moving forward so that anybody on the list that we walk out of that room with will sell this movie. And the best part about it is, those distribution guys that I deal with, they're not obligated to take your movie to market, and you're not obligated to distribute your film through them. You're both free to go at the end of the term if you want to. Hopefully, and has been the case twice so far, they do want to work together, and they do the business together, and they do distribute the film, and everybody lives happily after. The point is, you're not locked into a distribution deal too early. They're not locked into having to do your film if they don't want to when push comes to shove at the other end. So all of this comes down to building a team of people, right, so that you can take the steps, the proper steps, so that you can put yourself into a position of strength where you have enough money, right, to be able to account for your development, build your team, surround yourself with the people who know, and have at least $25K in the bank towards an offer. So your first task is to figure out where that 50 grand is going to come from to make that work. So debunking the script to screen versus the script to deal. So in the old days, you used to be able to walk into a company, pitch an idea, and they write you a check. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying it doesn't happen as much as it used to, right? So the reason I'm asking you guys to take these extra steps, and some of it might sound absolutely crazy to some of you, but it doesn't to me, because I live this world. It only makes sense. Because by you figuring out, I don't know how you have to do it. I've had people mortgage their houses and do what they have to do and Kickstarter and everything else, right? But at the end of the day, if you walk in with 50 grand, which is not a lot of money, relatively speaking, if you're trying to make a movie for $1 million, it's nothing, right? If you walk into the situation with 50 grand, you walk in with power. You now have creative control. You have control over the financing and the direction it's going to go in. You can go to the studio system and go down that direction. But the minute you turn your project and your script over to them, it's theirs. And it's not yours anymore. And you're lucky if you even keep your writing credit if that happens. I'm talking about independent filmmaking, right? Where you have power and control. And the only way you're going to get power and control is by having some skin in the game. And it doesn't have to be your skin. I'm not asking you to write a check out of your checkbook for 50 grand or 25 grand for development. I'm saying be responsible to go find that money and get it in the account so that you can move forward and believe me, everything will happen like this. Boom, 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 boom. Because now you've got the grease for the wheel instead of it just trying to crank around with no money, no grease, and it can't move. So development. Get the 25 grand. Try to find another 25 to back an offer. If you end up in a $50,000 position, you are good to go. Now, we're going to talk about submitting offers. First thing you want to do is check availability. Now, usually the casting director is going to do that. You know, the person that you just paid to do it, right? They're under contract with you now. They work for you now. So you're going to, and we have our list. We broke down our list. We talked to all of our consultants for distribution, and we know who we're going after. We want to get whoever the actor is that we're going after next. And we want to see if they're going to be, first of all, are they even available? What if we have them on the list and they're going to be moving to China for 6 months to shoot an epic film? Then, well, now they got to take them off the list. If we have a start date and we have a sense of when we're going to go out there and shoot, we got to know if these people are even available first. But what's great about calling for availability is it also puts you on the radar. You know, you have a representative for you, for your film, your casting director, calling an agent who they probably know and have their own relationship with and saying, hey, Mary, this is John. By the way, you know, so-and-so, we're looking for Kathy Bates. We'd love her to be in this film, and we're probably going to shoot somewhere around February of 17. Is she open right now? Yeah, John, she's open for February 17. Good. Just kind of keep it in the back of your mind. I'll get back to you with an offer. Awesome, great, thank you, bye. That's that conversation. So you've done two things. You've verified availability, and you're on the radar of the agent. Your film is on that agent, for Kathy Bates' agent's, you know, mind, so that when they get the phone call for an offer later down the road, it's not anything brand new. And in that conversation, it's okay for your casting director to indicate that you have partial funding, because you do. You got 50 grand. It's not much, but they don't know that. It's true. What you don't want to do is lie and say, and people do it all the time, oh, yeah, we're funded, don't worry. No, bad idea, because you're not, and it will come back and bite you, right? But this will get their attention, and at that point, you move towards the place where you will ultimately end up saying, you know what, Mary, it's John again. These guys are prepared to put $25,000 into escrow to guarantee that Kathy reads the script over the weekend and gets me an answer in a week or two. Is that fair enough? And of course, the agent's going to say, that sounds like a great idea. Here's the information. Let's get this thing going. Now the agent is excited about getting Kathy Bates to read your script, because it means money in their pocket if she says yes. And she's a hero. Okay, so moving along, this is an actual offer. Of course, again, I changed the names to protect the innocent. But I just wanted you guys to see what one looked like in case you haven't. But it talks about who the actor is. It talks about what the role is. It talks about the dates and the shooting period. In this case, it's a 7 to 9 day period. It talks about the state, in this case, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, where I do a lot of my stuff. It talks about the compensation. Now, that doesn't mean I have $350,000 to pay Kevin Spacey, but it means I'm willing to pay him $350,000. We may have to work out another deal. I'll get to that in a minute. It talks about the credits and his participation, and it talks about the perks: air first class air, round trip, et cetera, et cetera. You know, usually they want 5-star accommodations, blah, blah, blah. But you notice it says, now last paragraph, please discuss this offer with your client. If your client is willing to accept this offer, please contact me by October 20th. There's my deadline. If I do not hear from you by that date, this agreement is executed. The letter of supplementary aforementioned customer concern shall constitute the parties' agreement. Okay? So this is an actual, this original one was for Antonio Banderas, and I switched it over to Kevin Spacey and changed all the other stuff. But for the most part, this is what one of these things looks like. Okay? Okay, let's talk about letters of intent. I got to move this thing along a little bit because I want to make sure we have time for your Q&A. But a letter of intent. I'm not a big fan of letters of intent. I think that they usually don't matter. I think that they're often outdated. I tell the story about somebody who brought me a letter of intent, called me up on the phone saying, you're not going to believe this. I've got Shirley MacLaine. She will sign an LOI to do my movie. I said, oh, that's awesome. I love Shirley MacLaine. I'd love to do a movie with her. Can you send it over to me? He sent it over to me, and I swear to God, this is a true story. It was dated 2009. I mean, okay, enough said. That's about how much weight an LOI is worth to me. So there's a better way to do this, right? The best way, if you tell me that somebody is saying yes, they're getting me in your movie, there's only two things that matter to me. One of them is called an LOC, or a letter of commitment. And one of them is an actual phone call, verification. I need to be able to pick up the phone and call Shirley MacLaine's agent or manager and say, hey, this is Franco. I'm the executive producer for so-and-so's film, and I hear that Shirley is on board to play the role of Annabelle in this new movie, yes or no? And I just want to know if that's true or not, okay? That's what we're looking for. An LOI is as good as the signature on you see there, Mickey Mouse. It means nothing, right? But an LOC means they're committed. And as long as we hit our target date, they will do the movie. Or as long as I'm in communication with their representation, I know now I can go to my investors and go, look, Shirley MacLaine is in this movie. If I do this, I got nothing. That doesn't mean anything. There's too many contingencies. It's just not solid enough to raise money out of. Now, we talked about other ways you can pay. Like I said, I might offer Kevin Spacey $350,000. That doesn't mean I have $350,000. I might only have $150,000 in my budget. So you can pay the actors what you can out of the allocated budget if the actor agrees to be paid the balance later on a deferred basis. So the deferred payments are made from future sales generated from revenues that are coming in after the fact, okay? And they're paid out after the investors recoup, but before they make their profits, okay? I'm going to give you a chart to show you how that works. The other way that you can entice an actor is by giving them points, back-end profits. And it's very popular these days. A lot of these actors, they're going for some big points, but they're willing to do some of these films that they believe in for 10, 15%. But you have to define those points as whether they're gross or net, and they come out of your side of the equation. They do not come out of the investor's side, okay? So we're talking about deferred payments as an alternative and back-end points. So I could have a $350,000 offer to Kevin Spacey and say, I'll defer 200 of that, or half of it. I can pay you $175 now, and we'll defer the other $175, and I'll give you an extra 5 points on the gross points of this film. That's a strong deal, and they may very well take it if they believe in you, in your project, they love your script, and they're willing to work with you as a director if that's the case. So here's the way the revenue return works in the deferred payment. The investment's made, it's $1 million, okay? The revenue comes back into the stream. This is called the waterfall. What you see in front of you is called the waterfall. So there's the investment coming in and spent. The revenue returns come from the box office, video on demand, a domestic acquisition, which is usually at a film festival or something like that, your international sales, which we spent a lot of time talking about earlier, your pay TV, which is your subscription-based television like Showtime and HBO, your free TV, which is your advertisement-based television like NBC and CBS, your merchandising and ad sales, and the big one nowadays, of course, is your digital market, which is Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and iTunes. I have all of those relationships through my distribution arm. So the first thing we do is we put our films out across the board on the digital and the VOD, and then we do limited theatrical release after that. So as that money comes through, the deferments have to go out first, so that Kevin Spacey 175 gets paid out during that spot as the deferred payment. Once I get past the 175 that I owe Kevin, now the investor starts to recoup, and they get a 20% return. So if they gave me $1 million, I have to pay back 1.2. So that's my investor recoupment. And then after they recoup their 120, it's a 50-50 split. Every dollar gets split in half. 50% goes into the investors pool, and 50% goes into the producers pool, which is you and me, or us, or you, or whoever is the only people in the pool. You could have 5 people in the investor pool, you could have 1. You could have 5 people in the producers pool, you could have 1. But this is the way it works. You pay out your deferments, get them out of the way. The investor recoups all of their money plus their 20%, and then it's a split. Okay, last but not least, we got 2 more slides here, I think, is pay or play. People hear about this all the time, right? Is it a good idea? Maybe. Sometimes it depends on who you want. If it's Kevin Spacey, yeah, it's a good idea. Because if you can get Kevin Spacey to be in your movie, why not? You have to have a start date, though. You have to know February 17, 2017, that's the day. And you have to stick to that date because you're going to commit to that date and they're going to commit to that date. If you do a pay or play, you're locking that talent into that date with the offer that you have made. However, if for any reason the movie doesn't get made or you miss your date, you've got to pay. That's why it's called pay or play. So you want to try to make an offer without a pay or play, but if it's a big enough star, you may want to consider doing pay or play. And then I want to address first-time directors because this is a tricky one. You have to be realistic. A-list actors usually do not want to work with first-time directors. That doesn't mean they don't. It just means they usually don't want to. When we did Guns, Girls, and Gambling with Gary Oldman, the director, who's awesome, his name is Michael Winnick, did an amazing job on that film. He was a first-time director at the time. Gary loved the project. Gary loved him. Gary loved the script. Gary did the film. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying keep that in mind. It's an uphill battle if you're a first-timer. Distribution companies usually don't want to work first-time directors for the same reason. They don't know if they can sell the movie. Investors don't usually want to work with first-time investors. So what I'm saying to you is I'm not saying give up. I'm saying think through this. Make your first film for under $250,000. Make a small film. Don't go try to make a first movie for $2.2 million and get Kevin Spacey to star. I'm not saying don't try that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What makes more sense is you go out and make a small movie for $200, $250, get that, I call it FTD, first time director, branded on your forehead, get it off of you so that you're no longer considered, some of you are no longer first time directors. I'm only talking to first timers. If you're a first timer, make a small movie for, I'm not talking about a short, because a short doesn't sell. You can't make money on a short. Make a small feature, get through the experience, learn how to do it on that level, make the movie, get the money back, get distribution, be a hero. Now you can come back and call your own shots the second time around. So you want to take the ego out of that decision. That's where I find a lot of people get stuck. It's like, I'm a director, and I'm going to make my first movie, and it's going to be $3 million, and everybody's going to rally around me and support me. Maybe, but maybe not. And what if you started off small and worked your way through the system? And then this is the last but not least, attorneys. Some of you might be attorneys, so no offense, but it is what it is. And the truth is there are 2 kinds of attorneys out there when it comes to the movie business, and I'm sure other businesses. I call them deal makers and deal breakers. And the deal maker is, let's get what we need quickly and move on. And the deal breaker is the guy who's sitting there going, at $375 an hour, how many mistakes can I find in this contract, and how long can I stretch this thing out? Happens to me all the time. When you're dealing with agents and managers and talent, you've got to go through this process of having the legal documentation done. You're going to be very careful because it could take 6 months just going back and forth trying to get an agreement with the actor when you were wanting to shoot 3 months from now. So you have to make sure that you can't control who they have as an attorney, but you can control who you have as an attorney, and you want to make sure that your attorney is a deal maker and not a deal breaker. So that pretty much concludes the session. This sheet just goes to show I do one-on-one consulting, and I have a 6-week course, which is 90-minute sessions, which takes what you saw today and delves into it even further. So that's something that you guys might want to consider if you want to meet with me in person. But I am here for Stage 32. You can reach me straight through Stage 32 and email me through the website. And I'm happy to speak with anybody who wants to speak beyond today. But in the meantime, let's get to some questions and see if there's anything I can do to help clear any of these things up for you. I'm sure some of you have some questions going on.
Yep, Franco, I'm going to pop in while you start kind of looking through the questions box. There's some text stuff in there, so you can just go ahead and delete those. But there were some questions earlier on that you could probably dig out and find. And while you're taking a look through that, for those of you who might have joined the webinar while Franco was talking, this is the interactive portion. So if you do have any questions for him, you can type them into the questions box located on your GoToWebinar control panel. And Franco is going to be monitoring the questions box, and he'll be reading the questions out loud and answering them as they come in. And then also everybody that's here in the webinar as well, some of the slides that were a little hard to read, I sent out the individual handouts in the handouts section of your control panel, so you can take a look at those there.
So Amanda, could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Because most of what I'm seeing is about the screens and I don't see actual questions on here. Can you maybe just read some out for me?
Yeah, or if you want, Franco, what you could do is you could pop out the questions box to the right. You'll see a little thing to pop it out, and you can start deleting all of see the little trash can? You can start deleting all of the technical questions.
Okay. You want to? Is there anything that you can see that I can start with while I'm doing that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give me 1 second. Let me get to the first one here. Thanks for your patience, guys.
I think I see one from Brian.
Yep, Brian was the first one that came in. How do you assess? Do you see that one?
Yeah, how do you assess the balance between a name you can afford and how much inherent payoff is that for that person? Well, you came to the list. That is the job of the salespeople. People call me a lot and they'll say, "Hey, I've got John Turturro. Is he worth anything?" And the answer is yes. John, who I'm working with, by the way, his brother Nick Turturro is directing a film, and John Turturro is one of those names who people know. Most people know, and he's an extraordinary actor. But how much his value is in the foreign market, I personally don't know that. So that's the kind of thing that I pick up the phone and I call one of my sales reps and I go, look, or usually what's better is if I have a list of several names and say, look, I'm considering one of 3 or 4 people for this particular role. Which one of these actors do you think would give me the best bang for my buck in the international market? Now, these guys aren't going to go run any kind of, they're not going to spend a whole lot of time and energy picking up the phone and making phone calls for me and calling buyers or running numbers for me. Most of us is going to be sort of a gut reaction initially to say, of these 3 actors, this is the person I would go with because they're going to have the most clout. So, like I said, that's where building relationships, and this is the reason why I recommended, and I know it's not easy to do because some of you live very far away, but anybody who can come to AFM for that one time a year, it's such an extraordinary opportunity because you literally have, I think, 300 or 400 distribution companies from around the world represented there in a week's period, and you can physically go from office to office to office and shake hands with these guys and get to know them, and you start building kind of rapport with them and relationships because they want to help young filmmakers. They know that you're the next generation coming up, and they want to be a part of what you're doing and what your world is. And so building those kinds of relationships, even if you just have one, somebody that you can bounce those off of, it's really important. But like I said, even for myself, I have to call myself. I now have some kind of a sense because I've been doing it a long time. But the other thing I mentioned to you is that sometimes it changes. Like in 6 months, somebody who was really, really hot suddenly isn't, and somebody new is now taking over. And the problem is, like I mentioned, Bryan Cranston earlier. Bryan Cranston right now is a hot commodity. So is Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. I mean, these guys, you know, they had great careers. They were doing fine. I know Aaron. I had met him back in the day when he was just starting out, and they were just kind of moving along. Everything was cool. And then all of a sudden Breaking Bad happened. And now both of them, Aaron is in 3 films coming out like this month. And their brand has grown significantly. So now not only is Bryan Cranston a great catch, or Aaron for that matter, to get into a film, but now they're harder than ever to even track down because their agents and managers are being flooded and inundated with offers and opportunities for these guys. So it happens like that sometimes overnight. You know, somebody who's been around for a while just turns out, and that means that whoever was in that spot just got knocked off, and maybe they're not such a hot commodity anymore if enough of those people come along. So do you see any other questions on there, Amanda?
Yeah, Franco, I'll go ahead and read them out loud because I know that there's a lot of stuff in there. I think that might be easier. Thank
you.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the next question here is from Andrew, and Andrew wants to know, do you have any advice for approaching stars for short films?
That's a tough one. Look, it depends if you have any kind of relationship with them. You know, I have a friend that just recently did a short film with Doris Roberts. And, you know, it worked. I mean, I don't know how he knew her or how he got to her. I don't think he did know her. I think he basically found her manager and called up and said, I got this short and she'd be great in it. And it made a big difference. I think it's a little tougher in a situation like that because I'll tell you what, if you're successful at it, it speaks volumes about who you are as a producer, because most of these actors, you know, one of the reasons why they do what they do is because they want their work to be seen, right? They're actors. They want to be seen. They want their work on the screen, and for as many people as possible to be witness to that work. Well, in a short film, that's very limited, right? There's only a small group of people who are ever going to actually see that short film because it's intended more to be a calling card. Yes, it could compete in the short film festivals and in the major festivals around the world as a short, but the only downside to a short film is that there's no way to make money on them. They can't really recoup. So any money that you spend is probably not going to be realized as an investment return. But if the intention is to potentially turn that short into a feature film, and you are able to get that talent in on that premise, you probably have a better shot than if it was just, I'm doing my student film, Mr. Oldman, and I'd like you to come and be in it. Maybe, I'm not saying they would say no, but I think you have a better shot if the intention is to say, you know, I plan to go raise money to turn this film into a feature film, and I'd like to start with the short, and if you could come in and help me by lending your name to it. The other thing that a lot of people are doing, which is working, is if they have access to that kind of talent that may or would say yes to the feature, they're asking them if they can interview them on film, on tape, and they put them in the Kickstarter video. Because now, if you've got this person who's saying yes, and you put them in, and the world sees that they actually are on board for real, and that they're sitting in front of you being interviewed by you. I'm even doing that on a couple of my films where I've got some, you know, pretty high profile people that have said, yes, I'll be in your film. And now I'm saying to them on behalf of my producers and my clients, would you be willing to sit down for a 5-minute, 10-minute interview that we would then put on Kickstarter to help raise the money? And most of the time they're like, yeah, sure, of course, that would be great. Now, sometimes they have to clear that with their agent. Sometimes the agent says no, but it is one way of doing it. So it's about really connecting the short to something broader, bigger on the other end, where you probably have greater success getting them to say yes and being in the film than just doing it because you just want to make a short. So that would be my answer to that.
All right, Franco, we've got a few more questions here. This next one is from Jennifer, and Jennifer wants to know, the actor I'm planning my movie around has had exposure with A-listers in films by a director who has since passed. His wells seem to dry up for a little bit of time. I still believe he can pull an amazing job with this main role. When is it too risky to enlist someone who has become inactive?
I don't know that if it's ever really risky. I mean, even this film I have coming out with Chris Klein. You know, Chris was known for back with the American Pie, and it's been a while. And he took some time off. You know, he went and he got married, and he had a family, and he's not living in LA anymore. And then he made this movie, and you know, we're actually using that as a positive. We're using that as part of the marketing, right? That, you know, because people recognize his face and his name, and so now we're taking advantage of that and saying, look, he's back and he's better than ever, kind of a thing. So I don't know if it's ever too risky. I think the question will become, a lot of this depends on, I guess, on who is directing the film and what other actors you want to cast around and including, you know, that particular actor. Because one of the big pluses of getting into these kinds of personal relationships, which I've had the opportunity to do many times with a lot of these, like I said, Lynn Shay is a good friend of mine. When you get into these kinds of personal relationships, even if it's just hanging out on set, these people, even if they haven't been around for a while, they still have clout. They still have relationships with other people in the industry that maybe are more prominent today. And it really comes down to sort of a way of finessing, putting together the rest of the cast around that person, or bringing in a named director. A lot of these actors, see, again, many of the times when I'm confronted with people who come to me for financing or distribution or clients for consulting, is that they want to direct their own film. And I'm not saying that's a problem, but what I'm saying is that what attracts these name actors a lot of the time, and the money and the distribution, is the director. And if the director is just starting off, then it makes it that times harder. If you reverse engineer that, and you go and find a director who has some clout and some name, then what you'll find is that those actors will flock around to that director. And once that happens, then so will the money and so will the distributors. So it's kind of taking the back door by having the director. But if you're directing it yourself, that could be an issue. So I'm not sure if I completely answered your question, but I gave it my best shot.
All right, Franco, still have a few more questions. This next one is, do you, as an executive producer, where do you find the scripts that you produce? Do you accept unsolicited projects? And this particular member only writes and they do not direct.
I do not accept unsolicited material because I can't. But that said, most of the stuff that comes to me is referral. I do get films from agencies, from the agents and the agencies, which is a big plus because a lot of that stuff is already sort of pre-developed. But a lot of it is just word of mouth, and people do submit through my website. I can't read the script that way. That's the problem. When I say unsolicited material, I can't just take if somebody sends me a script and they just email it to me blindly, I can't even open it. But if somebody contacts me directly or indirectly through, I don't I make myself fairly accessible. Many of you will even notice on my IMDb, all my contact information is on there. A lot of producers and executive producers don't do that. I don't feel it's necessary to hide from anybody. So I get phone calls from all around the world all the time. What I am willing to do is sort of have a conversation about what your goals are and what your the direction your project might be moving in. That happens on a daily basis. I don't actually read a script until we've fleshed out several layers, because otherwise I'd be reading scripts on movies that I will likely never make, right? So, and I have 11 films in development right now, so I'm pretty busy, so it's hard for me to just take a random script and read it. But what I am willing to do, I guess is my point, is to have a conversation about it, to find out where the person is, at what level, and what the trajectory is moving forward, and if there is something there that looks like I may be able to get involved and help them get to the next level, to the point where it does make sense for me to read the script, then I can do that. And at that point, I don't consider it to be unsolicited, because by then, we've established some kind of a relationship and a rapport, and that's generally how it works for me. But there has to be something more than just a script. That's the whole point of this webinar for me, is that for me to get involved, even if people don't have development money and all that stuff, they at least have to have in their mind a way to be able to go get it. And I'll help them get there, but they have to have a plan in place. They can't just hand me a script and say, I need $1 million. That I can't do.
All right, Franco, I need $1 million. All right, a couple more questions here. This Stage 32 member has an A-list casting director lined up and an attorney. And who would you suggest would be next for their team?
They have an A-list casting director already.
Correct.
And an attorney. I would say, assuming that they already have taken the step with the budget and the schedule, that they have if they don't have a budget and a schedule, they should get one. That would be the next step, because that really should have been the first step in my mind. But I'm assuming that they have that. Then the next step would be to get some kind of counsel on the saleability of the wish list that they are going to the casting director with, which is what we were talking about before, to get some kind of counsel from either a sales rep or me or somebody who can assess who they're planning on, who they'd like to put in the movie in terms of a wish list. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a crazy wish list. I have people send me these wish lists with 6 or 7 actors in 5 different roles, 30 different people. They've got all kinds of ideas. That's great. But what has to happen is at some point it has to get narrowed down to maybe 2 or 3 for each role. But each of those 2 or 3 people have to be viable candidates, not just from the movie's perspective, but from the business, finance, and distribution perspective. So if you're already at that point and you have a wish list and you have an attorney and you have a casting director, I recommend that you do not go out to casting until you've had some counsel around who would make the most sense. That's where people fall off the rails, is they just start casting based on their instincts, and they're not paying any attention to whether or not those actors are going to actually help them raise the money or hurt them in raising the money. So that's the crossroads where it sounds like this individual is at.
All right, Franco, are you still up for a few more questions?
Sure, I'm good.
Okay, great. Next one is, I have a project set up at a production company who is attached to a major financier. Would the same approach apply to going to a director first, as you've explained, going to an actor?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it depends on who the director is, but yes. I'm a real believer in, the director is the core of the film, right? I mean, that's the person who is the boss, who's in charge. He or she, it's their film, even though you might have written it. When it comes to actually getting it made, they really are the core, the foundation of the project. So you want to take basically the same kind of steps. I mean, if you are affiliated with a production company that already has some form of financing available to you through them, then that's great. You're 10 steps ahead of most people. That said, you want to go in with your best game. And in my world, if I had my choice, which I don't always have, because like I said, most people bring me a project and they're attached as the director, or they have a director attached. In the perfect world, that wouldn't be the case. I believe in having a project be as unencumbered as possible. The best projects for me are the ones that have the resources to be able to go through the development process, which is what we talked about today, the $50,000 access to back offers and develop it, but don't have anybody attached, so that we can come in clean from the beginning. A lot of the times I end up coming into a deal where I have to spend the first 30 days undoing a lot of what's been done so that I can kind of start all over and redo. I'll give you a quick example. IMDb is a big problem for a lot of these guys because they don't know. So they get in there. I had a guy just recently, he sent me his project, and I looked on IMDb, and there were like 30 actors listed on his IMDb, and nobody that anybody had ever heard of. And this guy's trying to raise almost $1 million. And the first thing I had to say is, got to get those people off the IMDb, because it's fun and it's exciting, and you get to see your name up there, and all of your friends feel good because you're including them. But you're not going to raise any money when you got 25 people on there that nobody's ever heard of before. If you're trying to raise $1 million, you got to strip that thing down and only have 1 or 2 names on there, and have it really be lean and tight and attractive to an investor, because that's what these people are going to do. Myself, investors, distributors, the first thing we're going to do is get on IMDb Pro and look and see what you got going on. And if you got all your friends on there, it starts to look too amateur. So, starting off with a director that's a rock star director that's got some credibility and a name is all you need. If you had just that, you could probably raise money off of that, because especially, like I said, if you can go onto the director's IMDb and you start seeing some of the names that they've worked with in the past, with the understanding that, well, maybe they could pick up the phone and call so-and-so. Maybe I could get so-and-so into this film if he directs it or if she directs it. And that's really coming from a position of strength if you start off with a director. And yes, all of the protocols that I just outlined are equally applicable.
All right, Franco, I'm going to switch it a little bit here, going now back to actors again. This next question is, can you negotiate a co-production with the A-list talent's own production company, and then with the A-listers' input, approach their top choice director one at a time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. Yes, you can. Whether it'll work or not is a different conversation. For example, I mean, a lot of these actors now, as you know, based on this question, they have done that, right? It started off way back, Brad Pitt with Plan B, and Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner back in the day. They were the ones who sort of started that thing. Then, and then Drew Barrymore came up with Flower Films and started doing her own thing. And now pretty much everybody out there has their own production company. I recently met with Mark Ruffalo's company, and to give you an example, my understanding of that situation is that they kind of don't do that, right? Because they don't need to, number one, and they've got everything that they need. They've got their own independent financing. They get to call their own shots. And a lot of these production companies, the whole reason why they have them, why they create them, is because they want to control the content. So they may hire a writer to come in and write a script for a story idea that they have, And I'm not saying that they don't co-pro. Some of these companies will co-produce with another production company, but they're looking usually for somebody at the same level that they're at to co-produce with. It's unusual for them not to do that. So it's a good idea, and if you can get them to get involved and actually co-produce, what was probably more likely, at least if it's your first time out doing this, is that they would come in as the producer and they would sort of allow you to hang out through that production until you build a rapport with them, and they get to see how you operate, and you get to, establish some kind of a relationship. And then maybe the next time around, they may do a co-pro with you. But partnering with other production companies is a very good idea. But partnering with a production company of like an A-list actor, it's probably easier said than done. It would be my guess.
All right, Franco, I'm just going to ask you one more question. I think we've gotten to the bulk of everything. There are some questions that have come in about like more specific directing questions and some questions about scores and CGI. So I think I'm just going to ask the class that if you have those questions, maybe just reach out to Franco on stage 32, and maybe you guys can communicate directly on that. So final question, Franco, is the $50,000 that you mentioned enough of a development budget to consider to get everything done?
Yes and no. I mean, here's the perfect world. Because we're really going to get down to brass tacks and skin in the game conversation. That would be the minimum. Okay, that's the bare minimum. What 25 grand will get you in development, and 25 extra for backing an offer really is the bare minimum. Here's the perfect world. This is the world I live in every day. If somebody brings me a good project, now it's got to be great, right? The script has to be great. And if it's not great, we got to keep on working with it until it is great. And if you're a writer, you got to be flexible with that, because everybody's going to have something to say about it. Everybody. I'm going to have something to say about it. The distributor's going to have something to say about it. The talent is going to, the investors, everybody's going to have something to say about your script. So please, if you're nothing, be flexible around that. If you're the kind of writer that's sitting there thinking, I don't want anybody to give me notes, I don't want anybody to talk, I don't want to cut any pages, I don't want to cut any words, I've been working on this forever, I know what I want to do, then we're not the right people for you, because nobody's going to want to work in that environment. That said, if you're flexible in that regard, and you have a good project that people gravitate towards and really want to do, I'm not talking about your friends, because they're all going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm talking about outside people arbitrarily, sending it up for coverage, et cetera, and getting some real independent, objective feedback. That's what I'm going to do for day one anyway, before I even think about moving forward on a project. I need somebody else's third point of view, because I can't tell you if your script is any good or not. I'm a money guy. I do financing and distribution. I'm going to defer those people who can. But the perfect scenario, if you brought me a budget with $1 million for your own sake and benefit, if you brought in 25% of the budget, which is $250,000, you'd be golden, because you'd have $50,000 to do what we just said, 25 and 25. You have 25 for development, 25 for backing. The other 200 would never be spent unless and until I bring in the other 75% of the budget, which is the other 750. But by having proof of funds of 25% of your budget in a bank account somewhere, it completely changes the game. And it puts you in a complete position of strength and power. And it makes you a factor now. You're not just somebody running around looking for money. Now you're a player. So when you look at my IMDb, you'll see 3 or 4. I have executive producer credits, of course, lots. but you'll see 3 or 4 projects that it says consulting producer. On the consulting producer situation, and in some of the executive producer situations, particularly the EP ones, the reason I'm able to be an EP on these deals is because these people brought me the deal in the right place to begin with, which is that they brought in 25% of their budget. I don't care if the budget's only $350,000. 25% is 25%. Right? So if they bring in 25% of the budget, it allows us to be able to spend the money we need to in development and make offers and still have money in the account to prove to invest. Because here's the thing about investors. They're never going to take 100% of the risk. And you shouldn't expect them to. If your budget's $1 million, they're not going to give you $1 million. Because I had an investor say to me, Franco, once years ago, he says, why would I take 100% of the risk on your dream? And he was right. So what did I do? I went out and I raised 25% of the budget and went back to him, and he wrote me a check for the difference. That's the way it works. Nobody wants to take 100% of the risk. So to answer your question, yes, it's enough to get the ball rolling and to get you in the real world and get you moving and get a momentum and start bringing in other money. That $50,000 will do that. If you want to make a movie next year. But if you want to make a movie, between now and then, you really have to have the resources, and you have to step up and prove to an investor or to an investment group, in my case, that you're a player and that you're here for real and that you're committed. And the way to do that is to walk into that room and go, look, guys, I'm a partner with you. I'm not begging you for anything. I'm telling you, I got $250 in the bank and I need the other $750. Let's partner and make this thing work. If you guys watch Shark Tank, people joke with me about it. I love that show because that's the way it works. You have to have some skin in the game. You have to have done the legwork before these guys are going to come in and write you these big checks. It's no different for me. You can't walk into Shark Tank and say, I got nothing, but a great idea, and I want you to give me all the money. That's not how it works. They need you to have proven yourself first, and then they will come in and make you go all the way to the top. I do the same thing, and so do my investors.
Awesome, Franco. That was it. So I don't know if you wanted to say a final goodbye to everybody before I also say goodbye.
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody. I hope it didn't sound too much like a sermon from the hill, from the mountains. But I am very, very thankful for the opportunity to speak with you guys. And like Amanda said, if I didn't answer your question or if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me through Stage 32. I will say this. Please understand, I will get back to you if you email me. I will get back to you, but it might take me a couple of days because I'm kind of in the crunch time right now on something. So don't get discouraged if I don't answer you right away, but I will get back to you. I'll make a note of everybody that comes through, and I will reach back out to you. So please understand that. And with that, I bid you a good day, and thank you very much for your time.
Well, Franco, I don't think, or actually you are able to see the questions boxes. You see people are saying, thank you, you were fantastic, and thank you for being so generous with your knowledge. I know that you've done this, about 7,642 times already in terms of putting together films, so your knowledge is completely invaluable to the Stage 32 community. So I just want to say thank you. I love having you as a teacher. I will continue to have you back, so everybody that's in the class, be on the lookout for more from Franco. I learn so much each time I hear from him and talk to him, and I hope you do too. So on behalf of Stage 32, we just want to say thank you, Franco. And
okay, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. Truly, truly my pleasure. I love doing this.
Of course. And on behalf of Next Level Education, thank you for being a part of our webinars, and thank you for being a part of the Stage 32 community. I hope to continue to see everybody that's in the class today inside the Stage 32 lounge. We have 90,000 discussions going on right now about the industry, so If you see me in there, pop by and say hello. And until the next webinar, I wish you all a fantastic day. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.